lady. This is number 3 vlog. So my period was late this month, so it was a week and a half late, and I'm going to tell you why I'm not stressing about it. And so what was weird about this month is it's the first time that my period has been late for months. So I went quite a bit where my period was extending beyond 40 days. An abnormal cycle is anything that's shorter than 21 days and anything longer than 35. So my period for a while was actually pretty abnormal, which is something to pay attention to because it means that your body isn't ovulating, which you want if your fertility is then going to be like where it should be at, right? And obviously that is concerning for me. You know, I'm a young woman, I'm not married yet, but I do want to have children. So I was like, well, the more that I can support my body now and know how to, flow with it, then I want to be able to get pregnant when I want to get pregnant. So I was like, let's pay attention to this now. So, just diving deeper into my body, and I'm constantly testing things. I'm constantly trying out different things of what's going to work, what's not going to work. And so if you watched my last vlog, I kind of talked about some things that I was doing to test out. And so I actually wasn't too surprised that my period was late, because as you kind of test things out, as you get more into your hormones and how your body's fluctuating and just what your body's doing, you can very well have your cycle be delayed or miss it as your body is resetting and re-regulating. So I was sitting there and I was like, okay, my body actually clicked into the phases. So it felt like I had my period, everything that came up during the week of when I was supposed to then have it. I emotionally felt the way that I would during my menstrual phase. Just all these things that I normally would have felt definitely came up for me. And then I could feel my body clicking into a follicular phase. So I was having higher energy. I was excited to be out and about. And I was just like, oh, well, maybe my body's just regulating and this is just my body resetting. And so I was like, oh, I'm not going to get my period this month. That's totally fine. And I'm not going to stress and worry about it because I know what I'm doing is actually getting to the root cause of what can really balance and regulate my hormones. And then a few days ago on Thursday, I then got my period. So then it was a week and a half late. And I was like, man, that kind of throws things off when you're trying to track it. But then I was like, well, not really, because then when I was having my period, my energy was even higher than it has been normally during my menstrual phase. So I was like, girl, don't stress about it. I know it's a little off. And that was the first time in months. My cycle was coming every 33 days. So it was back within the normal range. It was predictable. I knew when it was happening. And now I'm like, oh, how is this month going to be? I don't know. So instead of stressing about it, just kind of flowing with it. But what came up this month that was completely shocking to me and just not in the norm is when I was a teenager, I used to get really bad menstrual cramps, debilitating, could not function, keel over, fetal position on the ground, crying because they were just so strong. So I got on the pill, and when I had come off it, those had come back a little bit a couple years ago. And so in the course of 5 years, this is 5-year span, those cramps have only come up 3 times since then because of all the work that I've been doing within my body and balancing my hormones and doing anything possible with food and my life to balance everything. And so on Friday morning, I woke up and I was cool, ready for my workout. I was day 2 of my period. That's usually when I feel the worst. I was this is great, I'm feeling good. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I had the most intense menstrual cramps. So my boyfriend came home from the gym, and I'm literally curled up in fetal position, and I had taken some Tylenol. I really try to avoid it, but it's really something that can help with the inflammation response of why, that's happening. And so he finds me on the fetal position, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just terrible. So what was alarming to me during this time was that it was actually taking on flu-like symptoms on top of the menstrual cramps, which is very new to me that I wasn't used to experiencing. So I started going through periods of feeling really hot, sweating, and then feeling so freezing. So my body was just in chill mode. And then I felt like I either was going to vomit or poop my pants. So I was going to these 2 drastic things, and I was like, okay, this just has not happened to me before. I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. And so that was me just kind of curling up, going to and from the bathroom. Thankfully did not throw up. but it just was so confusing and alarming to me and overwhelming. And so my boyfriend, bless his heart, actually stayed with me for an hour and delayed going to work for a little bit just to make sure that I was okay, which was just so nice and so comforting. And it just felt like, I couldn't think, I couldn't really communicate, I couldn't talk. And I was like, this is actually what it feels like for women who are going through labor. Like, it actually brings on labor-like contractions. So then I kind of just was able to finally have everything, whatever needed to go on in here, was able to just like settle down and release. And I was able to then go about my normal day. I went for a run later that morning, which has really helped get the blood flowing. So menstrual cramps can come up when your stomach is too stagnant, like the blood is too stagnant. And then when there is this hormone called progesterone 2, and that is like your pain response hormone, and then we have 3 of them. So there's P1, P2, and P3. P1 and P3 are the ones that are pain relievers, so it helps you not feel the pain. And so when P2 is high, that means you're going to feel intense pain. That's where those menstrual cramps come up. So I was alarmed, so I was like sitting there, I was like, okay, well, what did I do this month that would have caused any sort of inflammation to be increased within my body? And so for me, I don't really do much sugar, I don't really drink, I don't do gluten, I don't do soy, I don't do dairy, because my body has a stronger inflammatory reaction in them. So I sat there and I was like, man, we had a housewarming party and I had a chocolate chip, gluten-full cookie with the dairy, so that for me would have caused inflammation. I had a glass or 2 of wine this much, which I don't typically do, so that caused inflammation. And then I used to run quite a bit, so the running can actually contract your muscles and relax them away, and it can have this, I have never actually smoked marijuana, but if you look at marijuana from a medical standpoint, it actually has this calming effect and anti-inflammatory effect on the body, so people with migraines use it, and so running can actually bring that same type of state to your body and to your uterus. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go out for a run. I love running. I don't always do it. So I was like, girl, you need to start doing this a few times a week now because your body needs this. So that for me was looking back of okay, how did my efforts contribute to these based on how my body responds to certain things? And so, I was talking to my boyfriend about it, and he's like, well, this is just crazy that that's how your body would respond to just having a few things during the month. And I was like, yeah, for some people it's super minimal, and for me it was a lot, right? Since I don't do that. And so if I haven't had those cramps for such a long time, and this month I happen to overindulge because of a housewarming party, being out with new friends, and the stress of moving, all of those things could contribute to me then having that. And so I'm like, okay, well, now I'm super motivated to put my period plan in motion, where I write down what's actually going to work for me. I make mental notes, but I don't always write it down. And having something in front of me that I can just whip out of hey, week before, this is what you need to do, helps so much. So I've actually created that for you. If you go to the bit.ly link, cycle sync me, there's 5 things you can do to successfully cycle sync your life. And then even on my website, you can find a snapshot guide and a journal book of how your hormones are fluctuating, how your brain's kind of moving into it, and then how you can create what that works for you. Because it's just, we're all different. So fundamentally, we're all built the same because we're women. We're built to reproduce, but our hormone fluctuations will have different symptoms and more intensity based on how our bodies process food, how our bodies are genetically made up. So my mom had these same issues, so then it's not surprising that I then have them and have been struggled with them. And so, even in the cycle sync journey, things are just never perfect. That's something I've had to really just be okay with, and I'm able to alleviate so many things, but when they come up, it's just an opportunity to sit with it and being well, what did my efforts do? How did I contribute to this based on how my body is? And I'm not going to beat her up for it. I'm not going to think something's wrong with her. I'm not going to play the victim in this and just being no girl, you're right. I just need to do better next month and just stay motivated. So that's my story this month of how I happened to miss my period. It was delayed, but I'm not worried about it. And I'm nearing the end of my menstrual phase now, even though before I thought I was in my follicular. But my energy has been so good. My mental clarity has been great. I have not fallen into any sort of like emotional slumps that I would have in my past menstrual phases. So I'm looking at it as a positive that all of the work that I'm doing is getting better, and each and every month is going to get better. And so, yeah, I happen to have intense period cramps this month, and like, hey, that's just like more motivation to keep going in the direction which you want to, right? And say no to those chocolate chip cookies. I hadn't had one in like over 6 months, so it's just like, man, I can't even do one. Like, it's fine. I just always make them paleo, so like no gluten or no dairy. But I was like, okay, no problem. I just have to make sure I keep doing that. So hope you enjoyed this vlog today, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.